My best friend was her secret lover for 10 years. After my wife died he confessed, and my youngest son isn't mine. The confession nobody prepared me for. Hi, I'm Mason, 37. 2 weeks ago I buried my wife, Ava, 35. We were college sweethearts, 11 years married, 2 boys, Caleb, 9, and Theo, 6. My best friend since middle school, Jordan, 37, stood next to me at the wake handing out tissues like a usher. Then he asked to talk outside. That's where the floor shifted. Jordan's lip trembled and he said very softly, I loved her for 10 years. We were involved. And Mason, Theo is my son. No build-up. No mercy. I remember the smell of lilies and bad coffee and the way the sky looked too clean for what he just said. I didn't yell. I didn't swing. I said, thank you for telling me, because my brain was protecting the children's ears in the next room. That sentence felt like carrying a piano with 2 fingers. If you're reading this thinking, there had to be signs, here were mine, not then but years back, tiny flags I folded into squares and hid in a drawer. The every other Thursday strategy lunch, Ava wouldn't move for anything, even anniversaries. A white lily bouquet Jordan brought every hospital visit when Theo was born. Ava had always said lilies gave her a headache. A playlist on Ava's phone called Second Thursdays. I thought it was a joke about her book club. Theo's eyes, bright hazel like Jordan's. Family teased about strong genes. We laughed along. Ava was brilliant, beautiful, and, if I'm being honest, brazen. She liked rooms to lean toward her. If you pressed about her schedule, she'd flip from charming to flint. Maze, I'm not clocking in with you. When I get quiet, she'd kiss my cheek and say, don't be boring. Safe started to sound like an insult I'd earned. At the wake, I watched Jordan refill coffee for my parents, Linda and Mark, with shaking hands. My mom whispered, nurse voice steady, something's wrong with that boy. Ava's mother, Trish, posted up near the memorial slideshow like a publicist, correcting people's memories. She was passionate. Don't reduce her. Her brother Zane livestreamed the eulogies. I asked him to stop. He winked and said, content heals. The confession didn't explode me, it hollowed me. I tucked the words into my jacket pocket like a lit match and walked back inside to cut cake for Caleb. I could taste chalk. I smiled anyway. I told Jordan we'd speak after the boys were asleep and the house was quiet. He nodded like a condemned man grateful for lunch. That night I opened Ava's office to look for birth certificates and found the first breadcrumb. An old iPhone in a scarf box, factory reset, except recently deleted, still held a ghost. A calendar that pinged every second Thursday for 8 years. Title, Strategy Lunch with Jay. I sat at the kitchen table with that old iPhone, a legal pad, and the kind of shaking you get after a near-miss car crash. I told myself I would not invent monsters. I would look for receipts. Boring beats panic. The phone wouldn't unlock, but the calendar previews still flashed on the lock screen when I scrolled. Tiny fossils, Second Thursday, J, little knife emojis, Y. And locations that read like inside jokes. Library, actually the Maple Hotel Cafe 2 blocks away. PDA, a tapas bar we never went to together. I pulled our joint statements from the cloud. Every second Thursday, the Maple's merchant code 4 hospitality, followed by a rideshare to the same 4 addresses. I told myself business lunches sometimes end with rideshares. Then I saw a flower subscription. White lilies, billed to Jordan, delivered to Rivers, front desk hold. I remembered her headaches. Here's the twist that made my stomach tilt. 2 years ago when Theo broke his wrist at soccer, Jordan showed up at urgent care before I did. He handed Theo a chocolate milk and murmured, my little man, the way I say it. I had filed that under adoring uncle energy. Now it tried on a different coat. I called Jordan. Voice steady, words careful. I'm going to ask some questions. Please answer plainly. No poetry. He said okay. Was this only second Thursdays? A long breath. It started that way. Was it 10 years? Yes. Did Ava ever try to end it? Twice. Once when Theo was born. Once last spring. I failed that test. My throat went dry. Did you know about Theo? I suspected, he said, voice breaking. She swore the timing was messy. After the birth she texted me a photo of his hand and wrote, he's yours in spirit, even if not on paper. I didn't push. He started crying, the stupid, quiet cry of someone ashamed of their own happiness. I thanked him for the truth and hung up because my sons were down the hall and I could not break the air. I texted my mom to come sit with the boys for an hour. She arrived in 7 minutes with a tote of snacks and the face she wears in ER triage. I told her the bones, the affair, the possibility about Theo. She squeezed my shoulder like she was checking for a pulse. Then we get facts, she said. Feelings can come after. That night I found a manila folder in Ava's desk labeled, taxes, boring. Her handwriting had that laugh baked in. Inside, nothing tax. A printed email thread with the subject, Second Thursdays, a prepaid card receipt and a photograph, cropped at shoulders, 2 glasses, a table corner, and a hand on a napkin with Jordan's watch. On the back Ava had written, radical honesty later. Later never came. Light erotica is where I draw the line in a public forum, but I'll say this. There were texts in that thread about a hotel robe, a song she said made her feel chosen, and a note about how she'd wear the silver dress, if he brought lilies. It wasn't cinematic. It was habit. Practiced. Familiar. That is somehow worse. I ordered 2 at-home DNA kits with shaking thumbs and labeled them with the neatness you use for fragile things. Caleb, D.O. Mason. Then I sat at the sink and cried the kind of quiet cry that keeps doors from waking kids. Mom pretended not to hear and made tea like tea could solder bone. I asked Jordan to come over after the boys were asleep. He showed up with a 6-pack and a face like a bad verdict. Mom kissed my temple, took her tote of snacks to the den and gave us the living room. Plain words, I said. No poetry. He sat on the edge of the couch like it might eject him. It started as a joke, he said. We were 22. You worked nights at the warehouse. We all watched Top Chef and drank cheap wine. One night you went to cover a shift and she kissed me in the kitchen. We swore it was a one-off. Then Second Thursdays happened. Why those? I asked. Your basketball league, he said, wincing. He slid an envelope across the table. Printouts, hotel confirmations, an old email from Ava titled Rules So We Don't Get Stupid, and a prepaid Visa receipt. In the margin she'd written in that looping confidence. No co-workers. No sleepovers. Radical honesty later. Later never arrived. Did she love you? I asked. I think she loved being chosen, he said, eyes wet. By both of us. Who ended it? Ava twice. Then she'd text, I'm bored of being good. I'd fold. He scrubbed his face. I'm ashamed. He started sliding to the carpet like his bones gave out. Please, hit me, yell, something. I didn't. I handed him a glass of water and a legal pad. Timeline, I said. Every second Thursday. Begin to end. Names of anyone else who knew. He nodded and wrote. It took an hour. When the pen stopped, he whispered, there's a box you should see. He meant the widow's box, the one the funeral home returned with Ava's jewelry and phone. I hadn't opened it. We did together. Under the pearls sat a thin gray phone I didn't recognize. Battery at 9%. No passcode. Inside, a notes app file titled Maintenance. It read like a chore list for duplicity. Rotate excuses, book club /PDA/yoga. Move lilies to office trash. Hotel, ask for room 314 if possible. Turn ring inward at events. At the bottom, if he asks, cry first. Knees. Palms up. Say, I was empty, you are safe. My stomach turned to ice. There was a voice memo too. Ava's laugh, low and unhurried. Second Thursdays make me brave, she told someone, Jordan by the sound of his soft yes. He'll never leave. He's steady. It's what I married and what I run from. She giggled. Don't let me get away with it. I pressed stop because my hands were shaking. Mom appeared in the doorway like a nurse does, quiet, present. She put a hand on my shoulder and nodded at Jordan. Go home, she said not unkindly. We'll call you when we have facts. Before he left, Jordan turned back. There's one more thing, he said, voice barely air. Ava signed an NDA in LA years ago. A vendor trip. She called it gray. I told her it was black. She said we needed the bonus. He handed me a photocopy, Harbor Creative Confidentiality Agreement with Ava's looping signature. My ribs felt like an old house in a windstorm. The next morning I called Darlene, my mother-in-law, because fairness is a muscle. She answered on speaker. I heard clinking glasses. Sweetheart, she cooed, grief makes men dramatic. Did you know about Second Thursdays? A pause, then her pure voice. Ava was a free spirit. Women refuse small lives. Don't smear her. I found a phone, I said. And a note titled Maintenance. Darlene scoffed. Creative Women Journal, Mason. Context. Is there context for a paternity test? I asked. The line went quiet. Then, you will not do that to Theo. He is yours. Her emphasis made my skin crawl. After the call, an email pinged from a blocked address. If you want the whole truth, check the attic hatch. No signature. I thought spam, until I remembered Ava's habit of stashing holiday decor up there. I climbed the ladder with a flashlight and found a banker's box labeled Winter. Inside, not wreaths. Polaroids, a stack of hotel key sleeves, and a sealed envelope marked, "If I don't make it till later." I didn't open it. Not yet. I put it on the table beside the DNA kits and wrote on the legal pad in block letters so my hands would stop shaking. Facts first. Feelings soon. I waited until the boys were at my parents' and the house sounded like drywall thinking. Then I opened the envelope. Ava's handwriting, sunny loops, ruthless content. Mason. If you're reading this, the later, I promise, didn't arrive. Second Thursday started as oxygen and turned into chores. I told myself it was art, then medicine, then maintenance. I'm sorry I kept you steady while I chased voltage. If you ever doubt your goodness, you were the harbor. I was the storm pretending to be scenery. 2 confessions. There was someone before Jordan. LA vendor trip. An NDA kept the details, not the guilt. About Theo, please be kind. Biology isn't the only way to be a father. He carries your bedtime jokes, your patience, your eyebrows. If you test, I won't blame you. If you don't, I'll still be grateful. Tell Mom nothing. She weaponizes narratives. If you choose to burn it all down, use paper, not fire. I loved you in so many true ways. I also betrayed you. Both are facts. Hey. I set it down and did the only merciful thing left to do for my brain. I opened the attic banker's box. Polaroids, nothing explicit, but intimacy is loud even on cardboard. Hotel sleeves with dates. A tiny composition notebook labeled Rules for Second Life. Rotate excuses, ring inward, cry first if cornered. The cruelty was in the craft. I mailed the DNA kits. 2 days later, Theo asked why he had to spit in a tube and I said, because science is curious, and hated the way the sentence tasted. While we waited, I went ledger mode. Pulled Ava's email archives, found a folder named Taxes. Inside, a credit card I didn't know existed, statements forwarded to her mother's address. Charges matched Second Thursdays down to the zucchini fries. I froze it, then called our lawyer, Miss Patel, voice like a metronome, and asked what happens when betrayal shakes hands with estate law. Quietly, she said. Gather. No speeches. You're not here to debate the dead, you're here to protect the living. Jordan texted 20 times in 3 days. Apologies, essays, the whole tour. I replied once. Prepare a written timeline and a signed statement for Ms. Patel. He sent it same day. It read like a schedule, not a romance. Somehow that made it worse. My mother-in-law, Darlene, showed up with casseroles and a ring light in the same tote. We need to control the story, she said. Ava was a comet. People misunderstand comets. People understand receipts, I said, and handed her a list of credit charges for which the estate was now liable. She blanched, then pivoted. A mother's grief cannot be audited, she whispered theatrically. My mom, Linda, arrived with Tupperware and boundaries. We're not doing theater, she told Darlene, then turned to me. Sleep. Facts, then feelings. The DNA email landed at 2:14 a.m., a time when truth feels louder. I stared at the percentages until the numbers stopped dancing. Owen, 99.9%. Mine. Theo, 0.0%. Not. The floor did that gentle, awful tilt again. I forwarded it to Miss Patel and then sat on the kitchen tile petting the dog until his tail slowed. At 8 a.m. I called Jordan. He answered like a man braced for thunder. It's Theo, I said. The test says no. There was a crackling quiet, then a sound I've heard once before, when he broke his collarbone in college. Mason, he started, then choked. I'll do whatever the court asks. Support. Statements. I never wanted. You wanted Second Thursdays, I said even. And I wanted a life that didn't lie to me. Darlene texted a minute later, of course, paternity tests are violence. Do not weaponize science against memory. I typed and deleted 10 replies before sending one. The boys deserve the truth. We'll be kind and legal. Then, because kindness and legality can coexist with steel, I printed 3 copies of the results, labeled a new folder guardrails, and wrote in Ava's old looping pens, because irony is a writer, paper, not fire. Miss Patel said to stage the hard conversations like landings. Lights on, checklist in hand, no sudden turns. I booked a family therapist for Saturday, 10 a.m. We told the boys it was a feelings coach. Owen sat upright like a tiny attorney. Theo brought a plastic stegosaurus for moral support. I started where the room could hold me. Mom loved you with her whole heart, I said. Adults make mistakes that change grown-up things. None of those mistakes change kid things. Kid things stay the same: breakfast, homework, hugs. The therapist nodded me forward. There's also a science piece. I kept my tone calm. We learned that one of you has my biology and one of you has my love and my choices. Both of you have my last name and my forever. I paused. Theo, science says another man helped make you. That doesn't change a single thing about me being your dad. Owen's hand shot up like class. Is it Uncle Jordan? The room pulled sideways. Kids collect patterns adults pretend are invisible. We're handling that with grown-up rules, I said. You two are not responsible for any of it. Theo crawled into my lap and whispered, I still pick you. I nodded into his hair so I wouldn't cry in front of the stegosaurus. By afternoon, the other courtroom, our living room, filled. My parents on one couch, support beams. Darlene and her husband Rick on the other, ring light in her tote, golf visor on his head. Jordan stood near the mantel holding a folder like an offering. I laid out the guardrails: DNA results, a proposed custody affirmation, I remain legal father. Jordan consents and contributes without disrupting stability, a repayment schedule for Ava's secret card routed through probate, and Jordan's signed timeline for Ms. Patel. Darlene went first, voice trembly with performance. Paternity tests are an assault on memory. Ava was incandescent. Mom didn't blink. Incandescence and truth aren't mutually exclusive, she said. Sit. Jordan opened his folder. His hands shook. I've written everything for counsel, he said, then did something I did not expect. He placed the folder on the coffee table, lowered himself to his knees, not theatrical, just crushed, and said, Mason, I will not fight you for a title. I will show up for a responsibility. If the court asks me for support, I will pay. If you ask me to disappear, I will go. If you'll allow it, I will stand where you point and be useful. Darlene hissed, stand up. This is grotesque. Rick muttered, do we need lawyers for this golf simulator idea? Wrong script, wrong planet. My doorbell chimed. Mrs. Kim from next door held out a USB like a relic. You asked about Thursdays, she said softly. Our doorbell keeps a week. I thought, you might want proof without more shouting. On the screen, time-stamped clips of Ava and Jordan on second Thursdays. No kisses, no scandal, just practiced choreography. Ring turned inward, suitcase overnight, the banal rhythm of a secret. Proof that it wasn't a fling, it was a calendar. I breathed through my nose and chose the kind of revenge that doesn't eat you. Here are the lines, I said. Theo's schedule stays exactly the same. Jordan, you pay what Miss Patel calculates and keep your distance until she approves a plan that doesn't confuse the boys. Darlene, you stop posting about comets. Your daughter left debts. The estate will recover them. Rick, please stop pitching me hobbies for grief. Jordan nodded, tearful. Darlene opened her mouth. My mother handed her a copy of the repayment list like a hymn. After everyone left, I unlocked Ava's phone with the old code I knew by muscle memory. A new email pinged from a storage facility across town. Monthly auto debit failed. Unit 317. Skeletons don't stay in closets if you stop paying rent. I wrote 317 on the guardrails folder, set the boys' lunchboxes out like anchors and texted Miss Patel, one more errand tomorrow. Then paperwork. The house finally sounded like a house again. Dishwasher, dog sigh, pencil on homework, the ordinary symphony you fight to keep. Read it, if grief has a smell, it's dust warmed by a flickering hallway bulb. The storage facility clerk scanned my ID, slid over a clipboard and lowered his voice. I'm sorry for your loss, sir. I nodded, signed, and followed him down a corridor that sounded like rain on a metal roof. Unit 317's lock clicked like a throat clearing. Inside, stacked banker boxes, a garment bag, 2 plastic tubs, and, center stage, a cedar chest I'd built for Ava when we were engaged. I ran my palm across the lid like it might translate. I opened boxes in accountant mode. Top layer. Playbills, our old concert wristbands, Polaroids of good years. Underneath, a manila folder labeled taxes. Except it wasn't taxes. It was a lattice of receipts, hotel stays tagged Thursday tasting, wire transfers labeled studio retainer, and a boutique card statement with Darlene listed as cosigner. The same card Miss Patel kept asking about. Highlighted charges matched the date stamps on Mrs. Kim's doorbell clips. Administrative truth is not poetic, but it is loud. The garment bag held a white blazer I'd never seen, pockets weighted with a spare phone. Dead battery, no passcode. I plugged it into a portable charger I keep for soccer games and the screen bloomed to life. A private email account, a notes app with lists titled Rules, Alibi, and heartbreakingly, Apologies I'll say when I'm brave. I tapped one. It was 2 paragraphs of almost ownership followed by a detour into you're safe, and I mistook that for small. It referenced an NDA from LA vendor, the rumor Zane blurted at family night. Skeleton meet daylight. The cedar chest held the deepest cut, a small velvet box with a ring, platinum, simple, with an inside engraving, 2 comets, 1 sky, J. 10 years. That timeline hurt in a new register. Beneath the ring sat a stack of SD cards taped to a paper labeled doorbell/second Thursday/backup. It dawned on me, Ava archived herself. Secrets always require infrastructure. I didn't watch any footage. I photographed labels, sealed the bag, and texted Miss Patel. Evidence preserved. Not viewing. She replied in 2 minutes, proud of your restraint. Bring to office. Chain of custody form ready. The last layer was a shoebox marked kids. Report cards, finger paintings, a birthday candle clipped short. Tucked between drawings, a drafted letter addressed to future Theo. It started bright. You are lightning in a small body, then veered into a messy apology that didn't land anywhere safe. I set it aside for Miss Patel and a child therapist. Truth is a dosage problem. Back home, I laid everything on the dining table and built a timeline with green highlighter for family memories, red for deceit, blue for money flow. This wasn't revenge, it was a map out of a maze someone else designed. I sent the boutique card dossier to probate. I notified the storage facility to hold the unit as estate property. I emailed Jordan's attorney, CC, Miss Patel, with a proposed support schedule and a request. No contact with the boys pending a therapeutic plan. At bedtime, Theo asked, are we still going to the museum Sunday? Yes. Owen asked, are we still a team? Always. When the house quieted, I stood at the sink holding the engraved ring with a dish towel like it might stain. I didn't feel rage. I felt a choice. Administrative closure started humming. Ms. Patel filed a petition to recover assets misdirected through the boutique card. HR for Jordan's firm set a meeting. Apparently lunch and learn mentoring wasn't. Darlene texted a paragraph about legacy and not dragging a bright woman's name, then 2 minutes later, asked if I could advance a small amount from the estate to help Zane with gear. I replied with one line, please communicate through counsel. My phone stayed quiet long enough for me to hear my own pulse slow. Before sleep, I wrote 3 lines on the guardrails folder. Courts, not shouting. Receipts, not speeches. Boys first, every time. Then I added one more I didn't expect. Climb again. Not metaphor, actual ropes. Theo's stegosaurus sat on my nightstand like a security detail. Somewhere in the mess, the future made a small, polite sound, like a door not slamming, just closing. The next week moved in 2 speeds. Court fast on paper, grief slow at home. Miss Patel slid the storage unit haul across her conference table like a quiet fireworks show. We'll keep custody of the SD cards unopened, she said, initialing a chain of custody form. You did the right thing. It felt strange being praised for not detonating. HR called Jordan in while I sat in a glass room with a plant that had seen things. The investigator asked for dates and nouns, not feelings. I stuck to clocks and receipts. Thursday tasting, boutique hotel, the mentoring lunches that kept skipping daylight. Across the hall, Jordan's voice carried once, it wasn't like that, then went thin. 2 hours later he texted, administrative leave. Lawyer says don't contact you. I'll send support. I answered with the spreadsheet Miss Patel drafted and one sentence, communicate through counsel. That afternoon the lab emailed, the paternity panel was back. I read it standing between the washer and dryer because bad news prefers small rooms. On ours. Theo, 0% probability. It wasn't a surprise, but surprise isn't the point. I sat on the machine while it hummed and let the numbers be air for a minute. Then I did the next right thing. I called our pediatrician about a child therapist and asked Miss Patel to file the affidavit under seal. Truth shouldn't be a grenade near a 7-year-old. Darlene reacted like a PR firm with a megaphone. She posted a soft focus carousel, candles, vintage Ava photos, a quote about complex women, and sent me a voice note that ping-ponged from celebrate her fire to legacy demands generosity. 2 minutes later, also, can you front Zane $1,200 for equipment until the estate clears? I replied, please route through counsel. Zane sent me a bicep emoji and a Venmo request titled Creative Grind. Declined. Then a twist I didn't see coming. The life insurance broker called to verify beneficiary records. Apparently, 6 months before the crash, Ava had started a change of beneficiary, moving 40% from me to a family trust she never finished. The form failed because one witness signature didn't match. The witness? Jordan. The broker's voice was careful. The old designation stands. After we hung up, I stared at the wall and felt two things at once. Insult and relief, braided like rope. Mrs. Kim knocked with banana bread and, because she's a retired nurse and telepath's grief, asked if Theo liked dinos. She'd found a volunteer program at the Children's Museum, Junior Helpers. I signed him up. He came home that day with a sticker that said, "Fossil Friend," and a story about a kid who cried because the T-Rex was too loud. I helped him, Theo said. We used inside voices. Sometimes the universe speaks through 7-year-old HR. I kept the boys' world small and bright. Museum Sunday, Pizza Friday, flashlight reading under a blanket like we were conspirators. At night, when the house sounded like a seashell, I opened Ava's Notes app copies and read the draft titled, "Apologies I'll Say When I'm Brave." It was a necklace of almosts. I put it down and wrote my own 3 sentences on an index card taped inside the cabinet with the mugs. You were a good husband in the ways that count. Her choices aren't a report card on your worth. Be the dad who tells the truth kindly. On Tuesday I took the first tiny promise from the guardrails list. I walked into a climbing gym that smelled like chalk and rubber and new starts. The instructor, a woman with a buzz cut and the calm of someone who trusts knots, taught me to tie a figure 8. Trust your feet more than your panic, she said. I filed it under life. When I got home, there was a padded envelope in the mail addressed to the estate of Ava Lane. Inside, a USB stick and a note from a name I didn't recognize, Lila. You don't know me. I was on those Thursday tastings too. I left. You should know you're not crazy. Skeletons have a mailing list apparently. I didn't plug it in. I logged it, emailed Miss Patel and put it in the evidence box. Then I made grilled cheese the exact way the boys like it and we ate on the floor like a picnic. Owen asked if we're still going camping this summer. We are, I said. Theo said, can we bring the headlamps? We'll bring 2, I told him and felt the day set in my chest like concrete that finally chose a shape. Miss Patel took the USB from Lila, like it was a sleepy snake. Chain of custody, fresh envelope, my fingerprints nowhere. We watched it in her conference room with the blinds half closed. No scandal shots, just screen recordings, hotel invoices titled Tasting Sweet, calendar invites named with fruit emojis, and one audio clip that made the room feel smaller. Ava's voice, steady and bright, back in trance please. No paper trail. Then a man whispering, always, Jordan. The timestamp matched a night she told me she was stuck in traffic. It wasn't lurid. It was worse, routine. There was a folder labeled Trust. Inside, a scanned draft of the beneficiary change with Jordan's witness line, and a voice memo I had to brace for. Ava again, quiet, unperformed. If I don't finish this it reverts. He'll be fine, he's safe. The word safe landed like a chalk mark on the floor. Here is where you stand while someone else dances. Miss Patel paused the audio and said, we'll address the attempted change as context, not a contest. You already hold title. That night, Jordan's attorney emailed a proposal, a private reconciliation plan, and a draft statement framing the relationship as emotional support. He also offered voluntary child support testing at a future date. I replied through Ms. Patel with 2 sentences. Paternity already completed, please coordinate legal obligations. 5 minutes later, Jordan texted from an unknown number. I'll tell you everything. I forwarded it to counsel and muted the thread. Information is helpful. Apologies are optional. Darlene announced a celebration of life, with a vineyard backdrop and a theme, gold. She asked me in the same breath to speak and to keep logistics discreet. When I suggested we make room for honesty, Ava's music teacher, the boys' favorite librarian, she pivoted briskly, a tight guest list is classy. My mother Linda baked 3 casseroles and said, we can serve class and truth on the same table. 2 days before the memorial, a courier arrived with a small, battered box from Jordan. Inside, an old phone and a letter written in neat, nervous print. He confessed to 10 years of on and off, started the week of our engagement, rekindled during my hospital months, and settled into Thursdays after I came home. He called it inevitable, then a mistake, then love, then confusion, sometimes all in the same paragraph. At the end, Theo looks like me. I'm sorry. There was a photo attached, Jordan and a toddler Theo at a work picnic. Same smile. I took a long breath, titled the letter Record, scanned it and put the physical copy in the evidence box. Then I went for a run without music until my thoughts had to keep pace or quit. Memorial Day, the vineyard looked like a wedding that forgot its vows. Darlene wore a white blazer and held court under twinkle lights. Mrs. Kim slipped in with banana bread and a hug that said everything words ruin. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. Ava was luminous, complex, a wonderful mother and a person whose choices hurt people. I thanked the teachers, the neighbors, the friends who showed up. A hush settled in the room like a decision. After, Jordan approached at a careful angle. "I'll accept whatever you need," he said. "Tests, support, distance." He looked prematurely older. For one strange second I pitied the man who helped build this wreck and then had to walk through the tour. "Route through council," I said and offered my hand. He shook it like he understood the courtesy was the last gift he'd get. That night, Owen asked if Mom was watching the same stars we were. "I think so," I said. Theo asked if stars can hear sorry. I said I hope so. When they slept, I opened the clean notebook to the guardrails page and added 2 lines. "No ghosts at 2 a.m., mute everything. Tell the truth kindly, even to yourself." Then I booked a cheap cabin by a lake 2 hours away for the weekend after next. Not to run. To breathe where the air hadn't learned our names. The lake cabin was one of those off-season deals with a stubborn door and a view that forgives. I told the boys it was a quiet weekend. They made it loud in a healing way, skipping stones, arguing about which clouds looked like dinosaurs. At night we roasted marshmallows on a wobbly grill and played 2 truths and a lie. Owen went first. "I hate fractions, I like mushrooms, I can sleep with my eyes open." Theo whispered his lie was mushrooms, then fell asleep mid-whisper. Kids are mercy with sneakers on. When they were down, I opened the notebook and wrote 3 lines. "Don't argue with ghosts. Papered panic that we build here." Build wasn't metaphor. The cabin owner kept scrap lumber in a shed. With his okay, I sketched a small bookcase shaped like a boat, something the boys could tuck treasures into. I hadn't touched a saw since shop class. The first cut wandered. By the third, the board started listening. Sunday we carried a crooked, proud little boat shelf to the car. Theo patted it and said, "Our boat doesn't sink." Same. Back home, Miss Patel moved like a weather front. Paternity acknowledgement filed, child support mediation scheduled, a consent order granting me primary decision-making while we straightened paperwork. She sent a neat bullet: beneficiary attempt invalid, spousal consent missing, witness signature improper, timing suspect. The estate stayed intact for the kids. Administrative revenge isn't cinematic. It lands like a level placed on a crooked table, quiet, decisive. Darlene tried a softer angle, emailed a Notes app paragraph about complex love, and floated the idea of a joint statement praising Ava's spirit. Miss Patel replied, "No further statements." Darlene pivoted to a reel about men policing narratives, then called my mom to say I was smearing a legacy. Mom said, "Legacies can hold truth without shattering." Then she brought me soup and labeled it with painter's tape: "Eat, sleep, repeat." Jordan's work reassigned him after Mrs. Kim, braver than a committee, asked why a grown man spent Thursdays mentoring a married singer in private suites. I didn't push, I also didn't intervene. Consequences don't need cheerleaders. He sent one more mea culpa through council, offered to set up a college fund for Theo. Ms. Patel marked it, acceptable, no contact provision intact. The boys and I installed the boat shelf in their room. Owen lined the top with library cards we'd forgotten to return. We returned them. We're not monsters. Theo put a pine cone, a matchbox car, and a photo of Ava singing at their school pageant. Prettiest chaos, clearest voice. We said goodnight to the picture like it was a star we could still see because light takes time to arrive. I started stacking small good things. Tuesday nights, community woodshop where a retired guy named Marvin says, "Let the blade do the work," like he's handing out scripture. Thursday mornings, lake run before work, breath as metronome. Saturdays, banish doom scrolling, make pancakes with obscene amounts of blueberries. The first time I laughed without flinching, it startled me. Moose, yes, we stole the name from the internet and gave it to a neighbor's dog with permission. Ours is Pepper. Tilted his head like, "This again please." Not everything's smooth. Zane DM'd from a new number, "Family should be family." I sent him our payment schedule with Miss Patel CC'd. He replied with a single broken heart emoji and a link to his vlog. Darlene mailed me a spreadsheet titled Adjusted Restitution, as if grief were payable net 30. I filed it under noise. One late night, Owen patted out and asked, "Are we the good guys?" It wrecked me in a clean way. "We're the try to be kind," I said. "That counts." He nodded like I'd confirmed water was wet. Before bed I wrote 2 more guardrails. If it isn't kind and true, don't say it. When in doubt, go make sawdust. It wasn't triumph. It was steadiness finding its shoes. Tomorrow was mediation. I set out a shirt, packed snacks for the boys, and laid the little boat shelf plan on the counter like a map that finally pointed somewhere I could walk. Mediation looked like a waiting room that forgot how to smile. Beige chairs, quiet carpet, tissues in every corner. Miss Patel stacked our folders like dominoes and spoke in sentences that landed like nails. The headlines: Court recognized paternity for Theo with grace in the language so it protects him, not punishes him. A notarized letter for future questions, repayment plan for the siphoned funds, and a no-contact clause that reads like a seatbelt, sturdy, boring, life-saving. The estate stays for the boys. The attempted beneficiary switch died under a fluorescent light labeled improper. Administrative justice isn't loud, it's level. Darlene dabbed her eyes and called it character assassination. Miss Patel slid the balcony text timeline across. Zane whispered that he'd go viral if we kept silencing artists. The mediator said gently, "This room is for the children." We signed. It wasn't triumph, it was stitches. Outside, the city had the nerve to be ordinary. I bought 3 pretzels, 2 for small hands after school, 1 for the man who plays trumpet by the courthouse. At pickup, Owen asked if the meeting was a tie. "More like a plan," I said. He nodded, satisfied, and asked if we could add shelves to the boat. We could. Life didn't become a movie. It became breathable. Pepper learned to high-five. The boys argued about whose pinecone had more aerodynamics. My dad forgot another tool and stayed for the 7th inning in companionable silence. My mom stocked my freezer and wrote recipe titles on painter's tape like labels in a museum of ordinary mercy. On Thursdays I run by the lake before the world starts talking. On Tuesdays I turn boards into boxes, mistakes into dovetails. Marvin still says, "Let the blade do the work," and I hear, "Trust your feet, not your panic." Some nights the ache visits with its shoes on. I let it sit on the porch. I don't set a place for it. When the boys ask about Ava, we tell the truth that fits. She loved big and wild, she got lost, we love her still. We keep a photo where the boat shelf can see it. Light takes time to arrive, that's how stars work. If someone up at 2 a.m. needs a map, here's mine. Your gut isn't drama, it's data. Collect it kindly. Paper beats panic. Timelines, receipts, boundaries. Revenge that lasts is administrative, not explosive. Safe isn't an insult. It's a harbor. B1. Grief wants noise, healing likes routines. Run, cook, sawdust, sleep. Kids don't need perfect parents. They need honest ones that if it isn't kind and true, don't say it. If it is, say it once. Last weekend the boys and I launched the boat shelf's cardboard cousin down a creek. It capsized, then righted itself like it had a stubborn soul. Theo shouted, "Our boat doesn't sink." I believed him. We walked home carrying wet cardboard, blueberry pancakes on the docket. Pepper convinced he helped. The future didn't clap. It made room. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up.